Well, yeah, you want some chocolate, so I'm going to tell you to stop. I'm having some really, really, really bad thoughts right now, but you want a chocolate milk. You want regular chocolate, don't you? Yeah, alright, I'll have chocolate. Yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Well, I'm gonna have you make pumpkins. I'm gonna move that down there, so I'm gonna actually see what the stats are. Alright, yeah, you're okay. Go on to the other screen. So, I've been kind of sitting here sipping coffee and thinking about what I had seen the past few days, and there's this nagging thing in the back of my mind about something that I can't find because I had seen it eons ago. And the best I think I can describe it as was there was a particular kind of insulation that they put in planes that they thought was fire resistant. Probably gonna have to click a couple of pictures here to maybe that's better. These like puffy bag-like things, the insulation, and not specifically this kind, but it was something way back, long time ago, that they thought a particular kind of this stuff was fire resistant, so they were using it, and it actually turned out to propagate flame and caused at least one aviation accident. I don't remember which one it was. I say doubt for this one, because I sort of vaguely remember something about it starting in the entertainment system and then propagating up the insulation into the overhead, and the plane completely lost all controllability. If I go through my Seconds from Disaster series, I'll probably find the flight. But either way, the point is, they thought a particular kind of insulation was resistant to fire, when it turned out to not be. And I'll leave a link to this down in the doobly-doo, but what we have here is regular pink insulation, rock wool, the rigid styrofoam sheets, and then some of that spray can stuff. And it turns out that these two are slightly more resistant to fire than these two. And spoiler alert, yeah, those two burnt completely through. What's burning on this is the paper backing for the insulation. That stuff there. So, yeah, I mean, this is pretty condemning for foams, and I'm not going to say all foams are fire resistant, but I'm trying to find a frame here that actually lets you see what's going on here. This is completely burned through the bulk of the foam. That styrofoam sheet just isn't there anymore. And it's kind of nagging in the back of my mind, because I vaguely remember something about these spray foam attic things. And I have no idea what kind of fire resistance this stuff has. And I never really gave it much thought before, because usually when I hear some people talking about that, they're north of the permafrost line, where it's really, 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 really cold. So it's kind of far more difficult for embers landing on your roof to even get a foothold before just the frigid cold just kind of chills it out. Another thing I vaguely remember, and I don't remember what videos it was, but I vaguely remember people showing houses under construction, and I'm not seeing these things on the 2x4s and the walls. And again, it's under construction. Maybe they just hadn't gotten around to putting those things in. And the gist of this is it's to prevent that space between the two pieces of sheetrock from turning into a chimney. I think there might be a diagram there to kind of show it. You get the heat going up and it just kind of forms a chimney. And the interesting thing about this stuff is you can see there's a little blot of it there, there's a little blot of it there, because it's originally sold at least 20 plus years ago as you put this in the hole that a wire's going through a 2x4 to prevent hot air from a fire from propagating from this cell to this cell to this cell. And from what we see here, it did its job fairly well, but when you fill the cavity completely full of this stuff, it starts to act differently from expected. So, you know, I'm thinking about things like this. You know, what kind of foam are they using for this? What is code over that way, where you have an environment that is prone to wildfires? I would kind of expect the code in that area to kind of reflect construction methods that would be resistant to embers landing on your roof, causing your entire house to burn down to a foundation. I'm not expecting people to live in concrete bunkers, but at the same time, there are methods to slow the propagation of the fire, at least to limit the damage. And of course, that's not going to help other things that were beyond that, but still, I'm looking at houses burnt down to the ground, and I'm just... I can't fathom how hot that fire must have been in order for trees to be perfectly fine next to a house that's burnt down into the foundation. Something about that just... It doesn't seem plausible. I would think that if the fire of the house was hot enough to burn fiberglass insulation down into the basement, the heat given off by that fire would have caught the trees around the house on fire. So, I don't know. I think a lot is going to have to be looked at. Because it's tragic, but at the same time, it should never have been that bad. Never. To lose entire neighborhoods. I mean... I'm seriously questioning, you know, what were the houses made out of? What was the construction methods? What was the insulation used? We'll go back to the aviation thing here. I think it was Flight something 800. The insulation on the wires, the Teflon coating, had cracked. And under certain circumstances, it becomes flammable. That's, you know, so you look at a house like this, you have plumbing go through here. What's the fire resistance of this stuff? Does it reach a point where it's no longer fire resistant, it is producing its own inferno from the materials breaking down or something? Because you know, I'd seen one video, and a person is picking up a key ring, or what's left of one, and the metal has melted. That is significant heat to cause metal to start melting. And well, I can say that the Bronze Age was kind of a thing, and they didn't actually have forced airflow furnaces originally for smelting things down to make tools. You really had to set that up for it to be a usable furnace back then. You couldn't just put a couple of logs in a rock circle and catch the kindling on fire, and then just put your rocks on the fire and watch the bronze melt out of it, kind of thing. You had to do more to it to hold the heat in, and so yeah, there's a lot of things I'm questioning about what I had seen. You know, I don't know if they've ever done fire testing on this foam. And yeah, there's the pre-expanded stuff that they just kind of fluff out. And then there's the spray stuff that adheres to a surface and then expands. You know, one test I recall them doing is they'll set up a sample in a frame, and they'll have a little flame licking a corner of the sample, and they'll time how long it takes for the fire to propagate across the sample. And I vaguely remember something about that one flight. I can't remember what one it was. They took some insulation that would be used in an airplane. They set it up like that. They went to light the corner of this stuff, and the whole panel just instantly ignited and turned into flames, which was completely unexpected. And yeah, there's a lot of questions about this stuff at this point that I have. And I don't have any answers. I'm just looking at the situation and thinking, how do you go from a fire on one side of a neighborhood to there's nothing left of any of the houses? It just doesn't make sense unless there's something there other than wood that is exceptionally flammable, burns exceptionally hot, to do something like that. I mean, You know, how common is natural gas feeds is the other question I have. I don't know. But usually with natural gas fires, you end up with a fire where the leak was, and then they can turn off the natural gas at some valve somewhere, and it doesn't cause the entire thing to, the entire neighborhood to go away, usually. I'm recalling one episode where they were replacing a section of pipe. It disconnected a sense line for a regulator, and then the regulator thought there was no pressure, and it overpressurized an entire neighborhood. But maybe that happened here if there was natural gas. But again, with the damage I'm seeing, you would need a natural gas line going to every single house in the neighborhood. And again, I kind of hesitate in saying that everyone would have that. I mean, it's not uncommon to have at least a few people that go against the accepted norm and say, you know what, I don't want natural gas stove, I want an electric stove. So they don't have natural gas going to their house. And the area, I don't think they'd have natural gas for heat, but maybe. But again, there are other ways to do that. So yeah, I'm just, I don't get it. It's really tragic that it happened, but at the same time, there's this nagging thing in the back of my head saying I should not be seeing it as bad as it is. There are multiple things that went wrong. Multiple things that went wrong. Not just human activities are the main driver. Key thing that they keep putting on some videos. Yeah, that's a rant for another day. I don't have any of those screen caps on this computer anyway. But yeah, this is, I mean, granted, most of those houses were probably built more than 3 years ago, but, you know, how many of them had renovations and the insulation redone is, you know, one question. You know, did they do blocking when those houses were built? I remember when I was a kid and seeing someone do that to all. I thought they were doing it to keep the studs a little more rigid for structural thing. I didn't know until years later that was to prevent a chimney effect in there. So, yeah, maybe you have AC units in the attics. I'm vaguely remember something about a channel that was going and setting up rat traps in people's houses because I guess they were chewing through the sewer lines and getting into the houses, so they had to go and find where the rats were getting in and wire mesh it off and fix the plumbing, and then they'd go and put traps around. And I remember the people climbing through attics full of this fluffy stuff. To try to find where were the ventilation pipes going up through the ceiling for the plumbing, and then sometimes they go back up into the attic to set up traps to collect any of the rats that got stuck in the house after they closed up the plumbing. And You know, this fluffy stuff. I mean, what is the flammability of it? You know, does it just burn, or does it actually fuel a hotter fire once it ignites? A lot of questions. Now, yeah, and again, you know, there's a little bit of spray foam, right? Can I full screen this? We go a high resolution instead of... There we go. You see a little bit of spray foam right there where that wire goes through the board. I'm not sure. I think this was a bookshelf, but I'm not sure. But good enough to replicate the space between the 2x4s and a wall. The foam did its job in preventing the fire from propagating through to the next cell, but at the same time, used as a full fill. You know, that's... That's a really stark difference between these. And for an again, environment that... Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm just going to cut the video here because I'm just going to be just looking back and forth on these and saying, how? You know, I'm afraid to pull up another tab here in Google Images of what I'm referring to fire-wise, because all those different news agencies will probably flag my video, but I think we can all understand what I'm referring to over in LA. Incredibly tragic, and it should never have been that bad. Be cool, y'all.